needs to change.
The way the guys are at the shop, they basically made that thing, and it looks just like the back one. You could never tell the difference.
Also make money on stuff like this. Hoping that a little responsibility will help him grow up a bit.
While it lasted, it was America's favorite show. For 6 seasons, Rick Dale and the team at Rick's Restorations worked hard on Life television, bringing pieces of American history back to life. From rusted junk to something treasure-worthy, they were more than fixers. Millions of viewers tuned in each week to watch them make magic happen. And one day, without any warning, it all stopped. The entire crew gone. But what really happened? Join us in this video as we investigate the real, yet shocking reason American Restoration ended. How American Restoration began. Before the show took over reality TV, Rick Dale was simply a talented craftsman running a small restoration shop in Las Vegas. His path to television fame started in an unexpected place, through another History Channel powerhouse, Pawn Stars. When Pawn Stars debuted in 2009, it sparked a nationwide obsession with vintage collectibles. The show followed Rick Harrison and his family as they ran their Las Vegas pawn shop. They had become so renowned that whenever an antique needed expert insight, one name kept coming up: Rick Dale. His first appearance in an episode called Time Machines struck a chord. Viewers weren't just interested in the items, they wanted to see how they were restored. History Channel executives quickly realized they had something special. Rick had an extraordinary ability to turn battered relics into museum-worthy pieces. Even more importantly, he had what reality TV rarely finds: authenticity. He wasn't trying to be famous. He was the real deal. Rick had been restoring objects since he was 9 years old, when his father pulled a broken bicycle from a neighborhood dumpster and dared him to fix it. That early challenge lit a spark that never went out. With Ricky on board, American Restoration premiered on October 25, 2010, and almost instantly became a cultural phenomenon. The show followed the day-to-day life inside Rick's Restorations. At the center was Rick himself, alongside his wife, Kelly, who ran the business side of things. His son, Tyler, worked in the shop, while Rick's brother, Ron, handled picking. The crew also included familiar faces like Bretley, Rick's stepson, and Cowboy, the metal polishing specialist Rick once called the grumpiest person he'd ever met. But what truly set the show apart wasn't just the restorations, it was the family dynamic. Rick's relationship with Tyler became a core storyline, especially as Rick hoped his son would eventually take over the business. The crew's back and forth felt real, not scripted. The setbacks were real, and the pressure of restoring decades-old items felt authentic. At its height, American Restoration averaged 2.9 million viewers every week and aired in more than 87 countries. Celebrity clients soon followed: Billy Joel, Sammy Hagar, Jason Mraz, illusionists Lance Burton and David Copperfield, and NASCAR driver Greg Biffle all brought prized items into the shop. One episode, Pick, Pawn, and Polish, pulled in 6.5 million viewers. At the time, the highest-rated episode in History Channel history. Rick Dale was no longer just a craftsman. He had become the face of vintage American restoration. How much more prestige was Rick's excellence on the show going to bring to American Restoration? Keep watching to find out. American Restoration, peak days and early decline. The projects themselves were just as varied as they were ambitious. In a single episode, the team might restore a 1946 Harley-Davidson, a vintage Coca-Cola machine, antique gas pumps, jukeboxes, barber chairs, or even a NASA helmet. Rick later explained that the shop typically juggled between 6 and 12 projects at once, balancing tight deadlines, hard-to-find parts, and the technical challenges of reviving machines that were sometimes over 70 years old. Crossovers with other History Channel shows became routine. Rick turned rusted treasures into counting cars, or teamed up with American pickers. The network had built a world of vintage Americans who loved what Rick did. At the center of it all was Rick Dale, who was going to always put on a show. Success brought attention to Rick and his show, and with that attention came pressure. Networks wanted more drama, faster timelines, and bigger moments. Anything to keep viewers hooked. Little by little, the show was pushed away from what it originally was, an honest look at the craft of restoration. Behind the scenes, producers were already planting the seeds of what would eventually unravel everything Rick had built. Here's the uncomfortable truth about reality television. One networks rarely admit it isn't real. American Restoration may have started as a genuine window into Rick Dale's restoration business, but over time, it quietly morphed into scripted entertainment disguised as a documentary. Industry insiders later revealed how the process actually worked. The show was produced by Left Field Pictures, the same company behind Pawn Stars, and they brought the same manufactured drama playbook into Rick's shop. Customer conversations were scripted. Timelines were manipulated to make projects seem more urgent or drawn out than they really were. Some customers were even filmed twice, once when dropping off an item and again during the reveal, making the producer's involvement impossible to ignore. As the seasons went on, the fake drama intensified. Early episodes focused on the restoration process itself, carefully showing how Rick and his crew brought old, broken items back to life. But producers began pushing for more personal conflict, more family tension, and more staged scenarios. Fans noticed. Complaints started pouring in, with viewers saying they were seeing fewer restorations and more arguments that felt forced. One moment in particular stunned longtime fans. Rick's brother Ron appeared on Pawn Stars, selling a Coca-Cola machine, pretending he didn't even know Rick. He convinced the pawn shop to have the machine restored by Rick's Restorations, of course. The problem? Viewers already knew Ron worked there. The scene was completely staged, a blatant cross-promotion that shattered what little authenticity remained. And that wasn't the only incident. Another controversy soon followed, involving a golf ball slot machine restoration. How badly did this incident portray the American Restoration show? Was it what eventually led to its end? The breaking point for American Restoration. The original machine brought in by the customer was far beyond saving. It simply couldn't be restored. So Rick did something viewers were never told about. He tracked down an identical machine from a company called LA Slots in California, had it shipped to Las Vegas, and quietly swapped it in for the unusable original. On the show, this replacement was presented as if it were the customer's original machine, misleading viewers about what actually happened. Sources familiar with the production later revealed just how much control the producers had. Rick wasn't allowed to keep restoring items for his usual clients. Instead, producers chose who appeared on the show and negotiated restoration prices themselves. In most cases, the network paid for the work, meaning Rick didn't actually get paid by the customers for the restorations shown on TV. The trade-off was money. Rick and his crew earned far more per episode than they ever would have without the show. But the cost was control. Nearly every decision viewers saw on screen was made for Rick. He had effectively become an actor, performing restoration work under a producer's direction rather than running his own business. Then came the deadlines. Tight, unrealistic, and often absurd. Episodes regularly showed the crew racing against the clock to finish complex restorations in impossibly short time frames. Professional restorers watching at home knew the truth. Quality restoration can't be rushed without cutting corners, but producers needed that ticking clock to keep the drama high. To amplify conflict, new characters were introduced purely for drama. One reviewer pointed to the sudden introduction of a character named Leonard, calling it a serious misstep that made them stop watching altogether. The show had fully shifted away from craftsmanship and toward manufactured interpersonal tension. By seasons 5 and 6, online forums were flooded with frustrated fans. Viewers made it clear that they didn't tune in to watch fake arguments or side plots. They wanted restorations, not reality TV drama. "And I definitely don't care about any wedding nonsense," one frustrated fan wrote. "I thought this was a show about restoration, not shopping for a wedding dress." Another viewer echoed the sentiment. "You barely see the work anymore. One minute the item is rusty, the next it's brand new. If you enjoy watching grown men argue over nothing, then sure, this is the show for you." Professional restorers were even harsher. One electronic service engineer who specialized in videotape recorders didn't hold back. "It's painful to watch," he wrote. "They destroy beautiful old pieces, stripping away original paint and character. They repaint everything in overly bright colors, use the wrong fonts, the wrong details. Old gears and buttons are replaced for no reason, and the prices completely ridiculous." Would the show be saved, or was this the end? Let's find out. The shocking reason why American Restoration ended. By this point, Rick Dale felt trapped. He had spent more than 30 years building a legitimate business and mastering his craft, only to find himself being micromanaged by television producers who cared far more about ratings than restoration. The passion that made American Restoration special in the first place was being slowly smothered by the demands of manufactured reality TV. Eventually, it reached a breaking point. After 6 seasons of escalating producer control, forced drama, and watching his life's work turn into a soap opera, Rick had had enough. When the History Channel approached him about returning for Season 7, he said no. Rick walked away from millions of dollars, and in doing so, brought the show to an end. Sources close to the production later explained his decision. Rick was tired of being treated like an actor instead of a craftsman. He was exhausted by the scripted storylines that had turned the show into what he described as a saccharine sitcom. More than anything, he wanted control of his business back. He wanted to serve real customers again, not characters handpicked by producers for television drama. And that choice changed everything. What made Rick's decision even more dramatic was what he did next. He posted a video online, thanking fans for their support and urging them to share their disappointment on the American Restoration website. In the video, Rick looked like a man barely holding it together, someone who genuinely loved his craft but could no longer practice it under the History Channel's conditions. The network's response was fast and ruthless. There were no negotiations, no attempt to address Rick's concerns. Instead, History Channel simply moved on without him, rebooting the show entirely for Season 7 with a radically different format. And Rick wasn't the only casualty. His entire team, the same crew fans had grown attached to over 6 seasons, was also let go. Almost immediately, rumors began circulating. Some claimed Rick had become difficult to work with. Others blamed declining ratings or suggested he had problems with clients, though no evidence ever backed that up. The reality was far more straightforward and far more damaging. This was a showdown between a craftsman fighting for authenticity and a network that valued entertainment above everything else. What makes Rick's stand especially striking is the money he left behind. Reality TV stars on successful shows can earn anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 per episode. With American Restoration producing 26 episodes per season, Rick was potentially walking away from more than $1 million a year. And he still walked. This was going to be a big hit for the History Channel. They had a hit show built entirely around one man, his shop, his skills, and his family. When that man refused to play along, the network was left scrambling. What was the next game plan? How badly were they going to feel Rick's exit from the show? Keep watching to find out. The move that ultimately ended American Restoration. On January 1st, 2016, American Restoration returned for Season 7, and it was almost unrecognizable. Instead of centering on one shop, one family, and one continuous story, the History Channel rolled out a completely new concept. The reboot followed 5 different restoration shops scattered across the country. The featured owners were Bodie Stroud, Dale Wachsler, Andy Bowman Jr., Steve Hale, and Bob Halliday, each running their own business, each with their own projects. On paper, it sounded ambitious. In reality, it felt hollow. Fans were stunned, confused, angry. The show they'd invested in for 6 years had been stripped down and rebuilt into something unrecognizable, and the backlash was immediate. The new format leaned heavily into vehicle restorations, which only made things worse. The History Channel already had counting cars covering that territory. What made Rick Dale's show special was the variety, restoring everything from soda machines and slot machines to gas pumps and motorcycles. That diversity was gone. Now it was cars, trucks, and bikes, over and over again, boring, repetitive, indistinguishable from a dozen other cable shows. But the biggest issue wasn't the projects. It was the lack of chemistry. Rick Dale and his family had built something real over 6 seasons. Viewers felt like they knew Tyler, Ron, Cowboy, and Brettley. They watched Tyler grow up on screen. They laughed at Ron's laid-back humor. They respected Cowboy's gruff, obsessive attention to detail. That sense of familiarity and family was the heart of the show. The new shops had none of it. No shared history, no emotional investment, no warmth. Jumping between 5 different locations only made things worse. Just as viewers began to understand one shop's dynamic, the show would abruptly cut to another city with entirely new people and completely different projects. There was no continuity, no long-term storytelling, and no reason to care about any individual restoration or craftsman. One viewer summed it up perfectly. "I was in shock. No connection to the audience. Focused mostly on vehicles and spread across too many garages. Jump, jump, jump on the project. Someone in management should have been fired for changing everything," one furious fan wrote. The reboot also stripped away the educational heart of the original show. Early seasons of American Restoration took viewers step by step through each restoration. They explained the techniques, walked through the problem-solving, and taught audiences about the history behind vintage Americana. Season 7 did none of that.
And by season 7, American Restoration wasn't just broken.
Items simply went from broken to beautiful, with little explanation of how the work was actually done. Even viewers who tried to give the new format a fair chance couldn't stay engaged. Forum discussions showed fans checking out after just 1 or 2 episodes. "I really didn't like any of the new people and almost turned it off," one viewer admitted. "I'll give it 1 more episode before changing the channel." The ratings confirmed what the audience already felt. Without Rick Dale and his family, American Restoration was just another restoration show in an already crowded TV landscape. The magic that once drew 6.5 million viewers to pick, pawn, and polish was gone. The History Channel tried desperately to save it. Production values stayed high. They lined up attention-grabbing projects. George Clinton brought in a 1920s piano. David Copperfield commissioned restorations for items from his museum, and NASCAR figures Kyle Busch and Marcus Smith requested a trophy for the History 300 race. None of it worked. Even the show's Wikipedia page tells the story. Seasons 1 through 6 are carefully documented, packed with episode summaries, character details, and background information. Season 7? Barely a footnote. It's as if the industry itself wanted to pretend the reboot never happened. On April 1st, 2016, just 3 months after the Season 7 premiere, American Restoration was officially canceled. The series that once dominated the History Channel, attracted millions of viewers worldwide, and turned Rick Dale into a household name, was over, just like that, dead. Killed by a network that believed it could recreate success by stripping away the very elements that made the show work in the first place. What happened to the producers of the show after its end? What happened to Rick and his crew? Keep watching to find out. After American Restoration, Rick is married to Kelly Dale, who has stood by his side as a strong and supportive partner, both at home and in business.
From Rick's Restorations, we are all familiar with our favorite local celebrities from Rick's Restorations, Kelly and Rick Dale.
Together, they have 2 children, a son, Tyler, and a daughter, Allie. Tyler, in particular, followed his father's path by getting involved in the family restoration business, sharing Rick's deep passion for preserving and bringing old pieces back to life. The Dale family appeared frequently on American Restoration, allowing viewers to see their close bond and how they worked together behind the scenes. Their on-screen presence showcased not just their skills, but also the role family played in shaping the business, something fans connected with and came to associate closely with Rick's personal and professional life. One source close to the production described it as mutual destruction through brinkmanship. Rick Dale refused to compromise his integrity. The History Channel refused to surrender creative control. In the end, something millions of people loved was destroyed. Both sides lost, but the viewers lost the most. Rather than continuing to operate a business that television had fundamentally reshaped, Rick chose a different path. He pivoted away from large-scale restorations entirely and opened a laser cutting and embroidery business in Las Vegas called My Best Font Forward Creations. The company, largely run by his wife Kelly, focuses on Christmas decor, laser-cut designs, and custom embroidery, a complete departure from the restoration work that once made Rick famous. Rick also turned to writing, publishing a book titled Classic Soda Machines, which currently holds a solid 4 out of 5-star rating on Amazon. These days, he appears to be enjoying a much quieter life. He still consults on vintage items and occasionally works as a metal artist, but on a far smaller scale than the massive restoration projects he once tackled. His social media presence reflects that shift. Rick was once active on Twitter and YouTube, but he hasn't posted on either platform in years. His Instagram remains fairly active, showcasing occasional fabrication work, though nothing close to the volume or ambition of his television-era restorations. Kelly Dale has also found success along a new path. She became a licensed realtor, occasionally hosting car shows and making public appearances, smartly leveraging her recognition from American Restoration into an entirely different industry. And Tyler Dale, once positioned to take over the family restoration business, has continued to evolve his skills in woodworking, welding, and metal fabrication. Tyler married a woman named Haley in 2022. She's an interior designer, and the two appear to live together in Las Vegas. A look at Tyler's Instagram shows him working as a fabricator, but there's very little trace of restoration or the family business that once defined him. Brettley Otterman, Rick's stepson, may have had the most successful transition after the show ended. He leaned into his expertise in sandblasting and soda blasting, launching his own company, CleanWorks Mobile Media Blasting. The business now operates 3 blasting rigs and appears to be thriving. Brettley lives in Las Vegas with his wife, Steph, and their 3 children. Unlike Rick's restorations, his company managed to convert television exposure into a sustainable, independent operation. Rick's brother Ron chose a much quieter path. He now builds custom bicycles and stays almost entirely out of the public eye. Cowboy, the gruff but beloved metal polishing expert, also faded from public view after the show came to an end. Over the years, rumors of a Rick's Restorations comeback have surfaced again and again. At one point, Rick even posted videos of himself restoring an antique sign with the caption, "You wanted me back. Well, here I am." He later launched a website, learnfromrickdale.com, offering restoration training, member-only access, live Q&A sessions, and weekly check-ins. Still, the original restoration shop, the physical space where American history was brought back to life for 6 unforgettable seasons, remains closed. What about the channel that led to the end of American Restoration? How did they become so notorious? Let's see. The company that ended American Restoration. History, formerly and still commonly called the History Channel, is an American pay-TV network and the flagship channel of A+E Networks. A+E itself is a joint venture between Hearst Communications and Disney Entertainment Television, which operates under the Walt Disney Company's Disney Entertainment division. When the network first launched, it focused heavily on history-based programming, including documentaries on social issues, science, and current events. However, in the early 2000s, the channel shifted direction. Its lineup began to lean more toward reality television and shows centered on ancient alien theories and conspiracy-style content. This programming shift has drawn criticism over the years. Many scientists, historians, and skeptics have accused the network of airing semi-documentaries and sensational investigative shows that rely on unproven or non-science-based claims rather than solid evidence. As of November 2023, History reaches about 63 million pay TV households in the United States, a significant drop from its peak of 99 million households in 2011. Despite this decline, the channel maintains a strong global presence, with localized versions available across regions including India, Canada, Europe, Australia, the Middle East, Africa, Asia, and Latin America. The History Channel's original logo was used from January 1st, 1995 to February 15, 2008, and featured the slogan, "Where the Past Comes Alive." In its early years, the logo did not include the now familiar red background. Instead, the background color often changed depending on the type of programming: blue for documentaries, light green for biographies, purple for sitcoms, yellow for reality shows, and orange for short-form content. Plans for a dedicated history-focused television channel were first announced in 1993. As part of the preparation, the company acquired the Lou Reda Productions documentary library along with long-term rights to the Hearst Entertainment documentary archive. The History Channel officially launched on January 1st, 1995, under the ownership of A&E Television Networks. Later that same year, on November 1st, 1995, a UK version debuted through a partnership with British Sky Broadcasting, now Sky UK. At launch, the channel's programming was entirely devoted to historical series and special presentations. During the 1990s, the network became especially known for its heavy focus on World War II content. In 1997, Salon.com writer Mark Schoen famously criticized this obsession in an article titled "All Hitler, All the Time," noting that the channel sometimes aired up to 40 hours of World War II programming per week, and as much as 12 hours in a single day. Over time, much of this military-focused content was moved to the network's sister channel, Military History. A&E Networks viewed the History Channel as its strongest vehicle for international growth, largely because A&E lacked international rights to many of its own co-produced shows. As a result, History led the company's global expansion, launching in Brazil with TVA in April 1996, expanding into the Nordic and Baltic regions through Modern Times Group in 1997, and entering the Canadian market later that same year. By 1998, the History Channel began branching beyond television. It launched guided tours of U.S. landmarks in partnership with Mayflower Tours, supported by an affiliated website, historytravel.com, and the History Channel Traveler brand, along with plans for a quarterly magazine. That October, the channel also partnered with MSG Network to produce short-form programs focused on sports history. In November 1998, A&E further expanded the brand by launching History International as a spin-off channel, which was later rebranded as H2 in 2011. On February 16, 2008, the U.S. network unveiled a new logo as part of a major rebranding effort. The familiar H was retained, but a new triangular shape was added to the left, designed to function like a play button. This element was used for on-screen animations and visual flyouts during shows and commercial breaks. Just over a month later, on March 20th, 2008, the network completed the rebrand by dropping the Impets channel from its name, officially becoming simply History. In 2012, ownership of A&E was split evenly between two major media companies. The Walt Disney Company acquired half of the network, while Hearst Communications purchased the other half, placing History under their joint control. What did this split lead to? Bad decisions or better ones? Keep watching to find out. History Channel's biggest troubles. Another rebrand followed in 2015, led by designer Joseph Keeley. This refresh introduced the slogan, "Make Your Mark." While the logo was subtly updated, it continued to feature the iconic golden H that had become closely associated with the channel's identity. In March 2018, History announced the History 100 Documentary Initiative, an ambitious project aimed at producing 100 documentaries focused on major events and influential figures from the past century. Most recently, on December 7, 2021, History rolled out its first major rebrand since 2008. Once again, the network chose to preserve its most recognizable visual element, the golden H, which has remained a central part of its branding since the channel's launch in 1995. As part of the rebrand, newer documentaries that had previously aired on History began rotating onto H2, alongside older content from the History International era, which largely dated from the mid-1990s to the mid-2000s. In August 2014, A&E Networks acquired a 10% stake in Vice Media. The following year, on November 3, 2015, A&E announced that H2 would be replaced by Viceland, a lifestyle-focused network programmed by Vice. H2 officially ceased operations on February 29, 2016, signing off at 6 a.m. Eastern Time and transitioning into pre-launch programming for Viceland. When the network first launched, reactions were mixed. About a year into its run, an article published by the American Historical Association quoted the channel's historical consultant, Libby Haight O'Connell, who said that professional historians were actively involved in developing the programs. She also noted that the channel received many letters from viewers, some pointing out historical inaccuracies, others engaging the creators in deeper conversations about how certain events were portrayed. In more recent years, the network has faced growing criticism for focusing too heavily on U.S. history. Its former sister channel, History International, had offered broader coverage of global history, but that approach changed in 2011 when the channel was rebranded as H2 and began airing more U.S.-centered content. The network has also come under fire for specific productions. In 2003, historian Stanley Kuttner criticized the documentary series The Men Who Killed Kennedy. Kuttner was one of 3 historians asked to review the program, which ultimately led the channel to disavow the series and never air it again. In contrast, shows like Modern Marvels have been widely praised for delivering detailed information in a way that is both informative and entertaining. Several of the channel's reality-based series, including Ice Road Truckers, Axemen.
Axemen wasn't just a show. It was testosterone with a camera crew.
And Pawn Stars significantly boosted viewership in the United States. Despite their popularity, these shows were criticized for straying from traditional historical content. U.S. Senator Chuck Grassley has been a vocal critic of this shift, frequently expressing concern over the channel's declining emphasis on educational programming, particularly singling out Axemen and Pawn Stars. What do you think about the shocking reason American Restoration ended and the people behind it? Let us know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you learned important lessons about navigating fame and authenticity. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video shown on your screen to catch up on other interesting celebrity revelations. See you there.